The Hells Angels came to my uncle's funeral. What's the nicest thing you've seen a gang do? My mom had 4 older brothers. One I've only met once, because he lives in Florida and that's halfway across the country. Growing up, the other 3 all lived in my hometown, and I saw 2 of them pretty regularly. The other uncle, Dewey, only came around when he really needed something. Dewey was a good old boy born into a family of staunch white-bread Catholics. Dewey was completely bald, with a mustache/goatee combo that would make Jamie Hinneman jealous, and mirrored sunglasses that never left his face. Dewey liked his smoking and his drinking and his motorcycle. Dewey and my grandfather, a World War II vet who drove himself to the hospital when he was having a heart attack because ambulances are too expensive and will wake up the neighbors, never got along. Dewey was a wild child, married by 21, kid by 23, divorced by 25. He soon joined up with a local band of bikers and rolled around the city. According to my mom, I was still young, looking for a good time. I distinctly remember him coming to Christmas and Thanksgiving parties, having a couple beers, and leaving because he had drinking to do. He never stuck around for food or festivities or church, just had a couple cold ones, shot the with his sister for a bit, and rolled off into the night. I remember when he was diagnosed with cirrhosis. He spent just a few weeks in the hospital and I went and saw him one last time with my family. He still looked jovial, he was never a bad guy, always called me little dude, and had a dirty joke to tell, and while my family beat around the bush when it came to his impending death, he gave me the best deathbed wish I've ever heard. "I don't want anyone to grieve for me after I've gone," he said. "I've lived my life as full as I could. I had a damn good time every day of my life and I regret nothing. Don't be sad that I've died, I want you all to party for me." We had a typical funeral, ironic, I know, but during the wake we heard a tremendous commotion outside, like hundreds of bees landing in the parking lot. The door swung open, and in walked 2 or 3 dozen hardcore bikers, bandanas, Hells Angels vests, sunglasses, skulls on everything, dirty leather chaps, long greasy hair, smell of motor oil and whiskey. My conservative family fell silent and watched as these tough walked up to his casket. One at a time, they paid their respects. Some prayed. Some cried. Some talked to him, promising to ride again with him in the great beyond. Some stood quietly in reverie. They were devoted to their fallen brother, and so incredibly respectful to my grandparents you would have thought my grandfather was their drill instructor. They thanked him, told my grandmother they were sorry for her loss, and left as suddenly as they'd come, leaving only the vague scent of Jack on the air and a heavy, unspoken lesson about camaraderie in our hearts. TLDR, my uncle rode hard throughout his life, and his biker buddies tearfully attended his funeral, teaching all of us a valuable life lesson. Edit, I had no idea this was going to be so prolific. Thank you all for your stories and comments. I have tried to read every single comment posted in response to the thread, and have responded to some. I have to leave work for the day but will be back tomorrow with another, true, for the unbelievers, story about the grandfather mentioned above. I ran the after-school program at an elementary school in a rough part of town. Our playground was actually a city park, which meant we couldn't do the maintenance on broken equipment and I couldn't kick people out to make it safer for my kids. I'd had problems with some teen and 20-something drinking and finger-banging their meth-head girlfriends while the kids were out playing, and god damn it, we didn't deserve to just stay inside because cops didn't patrol. My kids deserved to play. It was frustrating. One day, a couple gnarly old 1% ERS approached me while we were outside, which scared me, and asked if I had been having trouble with the neighbors coming around. I told them that it had been pretty rough. One just clapped a hand on my back and said, "Why ain't gonna have that no more, and why ain't gonna have no trouble from us?" The next day, a biker was by the basketball court keeping watch while the kids played, and left when we were done. That continued every day for the rest of the school year. Also, the guys who stood watch never smoked or cussed while the kids were out there. I don't condone their activity, but I appreciated their help. The Westboro Baptist Church came to my town to protest President Obama's visit, and to also claim that a massive tornado that killed 161 people in my town just few days prior was deserved for whatever reasons. Luckily, hundreds of bikers in gangs and truckers blocked them in at a gas station and nobody saw them that day. At first I thought the WBC was going to be the gang that helped you, and I was just thinking the Westboro Baptist Church actually being helpful? Nah, man, that's just too far-fetched. I can see how bikers or even Crips can be nice, but the WBC? Hell no. And of course, I was right in my suspicion. When I was in high school I went on a double date to go see a movie, don't remember which one, and when we came out of the theater we realized that my friend who drove had locked his keys in the car. We spent an hour or so asking/begging cops that we saw in the parking lot to unlock the car for us, and every one of them turned us down. Then seemingly out of nowhere this gentleman appears, sees us looking in the window of our car, and asks if he can help us. We explain the situation, he says he can help. Within 15 seconds our car is unlocked. Being amazed high schoolers we just stared in awe at what had happened, then he leaves us with these parting words: "Today is my first day out of prison, I was in for Grand Theft Auto," and off he walked. Same kind of thing happened to me. At work in an auto shop this woman runs in crying her eyes out because she locked her baby in her car and needs something to smash the window and she doesn't have any money etc. This man completely decked out in dirty Hell's Leathers bandana and a huge beard walks over while we're rushing to find something to break the window with least amount of damage. He just says, "Show us the car then," and he literally walks over to her brand new car, barehanded, runs his fingers along the door handle, smacks in on the side near the window and pulls the handle for the door to make a pop noise and swing open as swiftly as anything. He strolls off and everyone watching was shocked. Wouldn't even take money or anything from it. Just told the woman to be more careful and goes back to his leisurely browsing in the store. When I was younger, I lived in a relatively bad part of town. I was/am Asian/white, and most of my neighbors were black or Hispanic. I started playing sports at school, and made friends with a number of kids, including this one guy named Thaddeus who was 2 years older than me. Thaddeus was a big, tough kid, but a secret that he kept from a lot of people was that he sang like an angel. He told me once, and sang R. Kelly's "I Believe I Can Fly," and I've never heard it done better. I swore to him I would never tell a soul and I never did. Thaddeus got involved in some gang activity later on, and I lost touch with him until high school. I was walking home late one night when I was approached by a group of black teenagers who apparently saw me as an easy mark. I wasn't sure whether I was just going to get mugged or was going to get an kicking out of it too. I think my membership on the football team was the only thing that saved me from an immediate beatdown, but it wasn't going to end well. Suddenly, I hear a loud "Hey. The are you doing? Leave him alone." I look over, and Thaddeus and a couple older, 20 plus, guys are pushing into this circle. Thaddeus throws an arm around my shoulders and says he's cool. "You with CMXI, you with me." The teenagers dispersed, and Thaddeus made sure I was okay before sending me on my way. I was a bit shook up at the time, so it wasn't until I reflected later that I realized that Thaddeus and all the older guys were pretty obviously strapped, and their status saved me from any trouble for the remainder of my time in high school. I grew up where there was heavy gang activity. I lived on the Mexican border, so it was pretty common. I had helped this one kid with some work in one of our classes, and would always just talk with him in class. Everyone else stayed away from him because he was a no-gang member, always in trouble for fighting and drugs etc. Well, fast forward a year or two and I was talking to this hot girl who was leading me on. Well, I asked her out and she says yes, then proceeds to laugh at me and ask if I am serious blah blah blah, and tries to be a bad in front of her friends. So I say to her, "You don't have to be a bitch about it, you could have just told me no." So then she got all offended, went, and told her gang friends, and so now they wanted to talk to me, which meant I was going to get me kicked. Luckily I had my old friend walk by at just the right time and he asked what the problem was. Now the story gets fuzzy but way more dramatic. Apparently after I was excused from the situation from the two larger and more violent kids, they went and took to the streets with their friends to solve my little mishap. Both ended up in school suspension, had both gangs at each other's throats for months. TLDR gang member friend gets into gang war because I called a girl a bitch for being one.